You don't overwhelm people, you expose them. That's why they flinch when you walk into the room, not because you're loud, not because you demand attention, but because your very presence works like a mirror they never asked to look into. It's a strange paradox. Your warmth draws them closer. Your clarity makes them shrink back. They lean in for your light, but then recoil from what that light reveals, their own shadows. And here is the trap you've lived in for years. You believe the solution is to soften yourself, to become more agreeable, more gentle, more careful with your edges. But the truth is the opposite. You don't need softer edges, you need stronger ones. Because what people resent in you is not your kindness. It's the way your kindness refuses to lie. Jung once said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." You are that catalyst, and transformation is rarely comfortable. Think about it. At work, when you voice a simple truth, someone suddenly stiffens behind their polite smile. At home, a family member changes the subject the moment your insight lands too close. In love, a partner begins to retreat, not because you attacked them, but because your honesty illuminated the mask they cling to. It happens in micro moments: a glance, a tightened jaw, a compliment delivered with a subtle sting, and slowly you begin to shrink. You laugh softer, you share less, you try to be easier to love. But here is the pain and the payoff. The pain is that you silence yourself just to stay liked. The payoff is learning how to remain bright without burning yourself out, how to shine and stay boundaried at the same time. That's what this journey is about. In the coming minutes, we'll move through the hidden mechanics of resentment, how projection works in real time, why your empathy turns into a job description, and the protocols that turn you from a campfire where anyone can gather and take, to a lighthouse, steady, protected, guiding only those who are ready to see. And if what you've heard so far resonates, if you feel the weight of recognition in your chest, then pause for just a moment. Consider subscribing to this channel, because here, each week, we go deeper into the psychology of what it really means to carry both sensitivity and strength in a world that often misunderstands both. No noise, no surface tricks, just the hard, luminous work of seeing yourself more clearly. Now, let's continue. Your presence is not neutral. It is a psychological stress test. You don't plan it, but the moment you step into the field of another person's psyche, their mask begins to creak. Projection, Jung's most haunting idea, but also the simplest. Everything that irritates us about others, he said, can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. When someone resents you, what they truly resent is seeing, on your face, in your gestures, the qualities they cannot own in themselves. Watch closely. The signs are subtle. They moralize suddenly about your tone. They praise you with one hand and cut you with the other. They grow uneasy when you draw even the smallest boundary, as if your no exposed the frailty of their entire sense of entitlement. This is projection in real time. Their unowned insecurity reflected in your clarity. Their hidden longing ignited by your presence. And if you're not careful, you swallow it. You mistake their discomfort for your defect. You hear, "You're too much." But what it really means is, "I can't face the parts of me you bring alive." Here is a small tool, the 3-second scan. Next time you feel the air shift, don't rush to words. Scan the body. Notice where their shoulders tighten, where their jaw locks, where their smile doesn't meet their eyes. Truth leaks through the body before it finds language. And here is another, the microscript. When you say X, I feel Y. I'm stepping back to stay clear. Short, sober, inarguable. Because projection is a package and you do not have to sign for delivery. For too long, you've believed this discomfort was proof you were unworthy. No, it is proof you were a mirror, and not everyone is ready to look. Now, let's look at the second trap. When empathy turns into a job description. You learned early that love was conditional. Maybe it was in childhood, when your worth was measured in obedience, in helpfulness, in how much chaos you could absorb without breaking. Alfred Adler would call this striving for significance. But what happens when significance is never given freely? You start earning it by rescuing others, by fixing, soothing, pleasing, by becoming indispensable so you can never be abandoned. Erich Fromm warned of this, the desperate confusion between being needed and being wanted. And so empathy becomes your occupation, not a gift, but a contract. You anticipate needs before they're spoken. You sacrifice your rest so no one else feels discomfort. You offer comfort uninvited, then wonder why you feel drained. This is the savior reflex. It plays out on the stage of the Karpman triangle: rescuer, victim, persecutor. In 1 week, you cycle through all three. You rescue until you're empty, then resentful, then you explode or withdraw, and suddenly you're the problem. You think you're healing others, but often you're interfering with the growth pain they need to face. Ask yourself, do I help uninvited? Do I help to feel safe? Do I help so I won't be left behind? These are not acts of love. They are survival strategies disguised as virtue. And here is the boundary myth we must kill. Compassion does not mean compliance. Kindness does not mean access. The cost of the savior reflex is heavy. Burnout, silent resentment, a subtle self-hatred for always disappearing in the name of others. But there is another way. Switch from rescuing bodies to respecting agency. Here is a simple protocol. Offer once, clarify once, step back. Offer your hand, yes, but if they refuse, let them walk. If they stumble, let them learn. If they collapse, trust that their own spirit must choose to rise. You are not responsible for carrying every fallen soul across the threshold of healing. And once you let go of that burden, you will feel lighter, stronger, more honest in your giving. Which brings us to a darker truth. Why does your very light feel like an insult to some?
Nietzsche had a word for this: ressentiment. It is not just envy, it is self-hatred, inverted, projected outward. Here's how it works. They compare themselves to you. They feel the sting of humiliation. They cannot tolerate that sting, so they reverse the moral order. What they cannot achieve, they label as weakness. What they secretly admire, they scorn aloud. And suddenly your sensitivity becomes fragility. Your clarity becomes arrogance. Your presence becomes a silent accusation. Listen to the phrases, "must be nice to feel so much." Some of us live in the real world. These are not jokes, they are power plays. They are attempts to redraw the moral map so they can win by default. Your task? Never accept their frame. When a colleague praises you, then undercuts you with a joke, don't laugh along to stay small. Say calmly, "In my space, sarcasm isn't intimacy." State the standard, not the person. It disarms the game without feeding it. Because here is the danger. Once you accept their frame, you dim, you contort, you become palatable but also unrecognizable to yourself. And here is the payoff. When you refuse their frame, you stay available, but unmanipulable. Your light remains yours, your presence remains a gift. Some will be warmed by it, others will curse it, but you will no longer carry their resentment as if it were your crime. Before the mind admits it, the body knows. You felt it. That small tightening in your stomach when someone laughs at you instead of with you. The subtle collapse in your chest When a friend forgets to celebrate your joy, but never forgets to borrow your time. The heaviness behind your eyes when you leave a conversation more drained than nourished. We're taught to override these signals, to be polite, to give the benefit of the doubt, to swallow discomfort as if endurance were a badge of maturity. But your nervous system is a compass. The micro tremor in your hands, the shallow breath, the restless tapping of your foot, these are not random. They are alarms. Quiet alarms, yes, but alarms, still. Trauma researchers like Bessel van der Kolk remind us, the body keeps the score, and your scorecard is precise. Here is a practice. Scan before you explain. Before asking, "Am I overreacting?" ask, "What is my body telling me right now?" Track energy, not words. Forget what they said. How did you feel 5 minutes after? Expanded or contracted? Honor first impressions. Your intuition is a rapid calculation of subtle data. It is not paranoia. It is survival intelligence. The cost of ignoring these signals is steep. Chronic fatigue, lingering anxiety, silent resentment that corrodes love from the inside. But when you listen, you reclaim time. You step out of toxic ties faster. You protect your flame before it flickers. Because resentment is not always shouted. Often it seeps, and your body will register the draft long before your mind admits the room is cold.
When empaths first hear set boundaries, they imagine confrontation, harsh lines, cold refusals, a fortress. But boundaries are not walls. They are architecture. They breathe. They flex. They are less about keeping others out and more about keeping yourself intact. Picture a lighthouse. Its light does not beg ships to respect it. It simply turns, steady, unavoidable. The boundary is not in the plea. It is in the presence. Here are 3 forms of boundary: simple, elegant, effective. Time boundaries. I can talk for 20 minutes, then I need to log off. Clear, neutral, no apology. Emotional boundaries. I hear you, but I can't hold this for you today. Compassionate, but firm. Energetic boundaries. Sometimes no words. You simply lean back, breathe deeper, let silence reclaim space. Presence itself communicates, "I will not be swallowed." And here's the paradox. The stronger your boundaries, the warmer your presence feels. Because people can finally trust you're not giving under duress, but from choice. Without boundaries, your kindness tastes like martyrdom. With boundaries, your kindness tastes like freedom. And here is the rule I want you to carry. A boundary is a standard, not a weapon. You don't need to justify, argue, or convince. You state, you act, you repeat. The repetition is the wall. Some will test it, some will leave, but those who stay, those are the ones who can stand in your light without resenting it. You keep searching for safe company. That is natural. But the first safe company you must cultivate is yourself. Solitude is not loneliness. It is calibration. It is the clearing of static, the strengthening of your own signal so you stop mistaking interference for intimacy. Carl Jung warned that without solitude, the psyche is flooded with collective noise. Nietzsche lived most of his life in isolation, not because he hated people, but because he knew to hear your own voice clearly, you must sometimes step away from the chorus. Here is what solitude does for empaths. It detoxes the nervous system from constant hyper-attunement. It reveals your baseline mood so you can tell which emotions are yours and which are borrowed. It builds tolerance for your own company so you don't grasp at half love just to avoid silence. Think of solitude as rehearsal space. You practice saying no without backlash. You practice speaking desires without interruption. You practice existing without constant reflection from others. And then, when you return to the world, you carry less hunger, less bargaining, less need to dim yourself to keep company. Solitude is not exile. It is strengthening the core of the lighthouse so the light stays steady no matter who comes near or who drifts away. Here is the final shift. You are not obligated to be available to everyone. Your empathy is not public property. Your light is not a street lamp. It is a fire. And fire is sacred. Not everyone should be allowed to sit at its edge. The old you believed, if I'm open to all, I'll be safe, I'll be loved. But the new you must believe, if I am discerning, I will be free and I will be true. Here are 3 filters to apply before letting someone close. Do they celebrate your joy without shrinking? If your wins feel like losses to them, they cannot stay. Do they honor your no without punishment? If your boundaries invite sulking, guilt trips, or withdrawal, they are not ready for your presence. Do they recharge you or drain you? Love should expand your chest, not tighten it. And remember, choosing is not cruelty. It is stewardship. Some people must admire your light from a distance. Others are allowed to walk closer, to warm their hands at your fire. A rare few you will let sit beside you, to share in its tending. But no one should ever be allowed to extinguish it. So let them resent if they must. Let them gossip, withdraw, mock, or twist. Their resentment is not your indictment. It is their shadow, still unclaimed. Your only task is to burn steady, to carry your flame into the night, not as apology, but as gift, because the world is darker than it admits, and those who walk with their light unhidden are rarer than saints.